What's up, guys? It's Symatix here with another production walkthrough video. Today I'll be taking you through my new track, Connected, which you can find on SoundCloud, Bandcamp for free download, as well as YouTube. Check it out. I do hope you like it. Hope you enjoy listening to it. And if you do share it, I appreciate you reposting is super appreciated. And yeah, let's kind of get into it. I dropped it October 3rd on Friday. And this is the session for it. Like as I had it, I haven't changed anything or renamed, organized anything. It was just this. So I do use Logic. I know a lot of other people probably use like FL or Ableton. Nothing wrong with those. I just learned on Logic, and I know the key commands. It can move through it pretty fast. I'm comfortable with it. I think that's ultimately what's most important, not what you use, but how you use it, what you're used to. So um, but yeah, I mean, you can see the whole track kind of laid out right here. The first section, the middle breakdown and riser and drop, and then the last drop as well as the outro over here. I wrote it kind of all over the place. The track took me about a week to finish, and it was really it was different. I kind of attacked it in different ways. I mean, I originally started writing kind of this section, and then I jumped and wrote this section, and then I wrote the middle and the riser, and then I had to find out some kind of way to do an intro, which I kind of just dropped it in. I didn't go the typical genre route of having an intro and a build up all cinematic or whatever you'd like to do. It's just kind of it. So there's no rules. Um, and then yeah, I had to write after I wrote this drop section. I had trouble kind of bridging this gap, so then I wrote this right here, and I'll get into it. We'll kind of just go through the track, progressively, and then as new things get introduced, I'll talk about them. But ultimately, this whole thing kind of centered around. It started with this melody that I had. I have a lot of random ideas on my laptop, and sometimes they don't go anywhere, and sometimes they do. So this one was originally just these keys right here. Um, so And originally there was just like the notes in a ARP sort of manner, but I did create these little gaps here and here, and some of the notes in the MIDI are muted just to create more of like a pocket or a space. And then anything I click up here in this arrange window does show up over here on the left. And if there's an output like stereo out, it will show up next door on this display. But on those bells, there is like an EQ, which is boosting all the mids, cutting the super highs a little, and removing all the lows. And then the reason for the pump sound that it has is because of LFO tool. Usually that's what I'll do to get movement out of things. So without it, it sounds like this. It's not the same. And then there is a pitch shifter actually, but I know it's not doing anything, so I don't need it. And then that's really what drives the energy forward, aside from the drums and bass. But there is also this additional kind of like patch that I use just to fill the space. It's just a key with like some delay noise, sort of. That's some volume automation right there. But yeah, so those are really the only melodic elements in the track. Everything else is going to be drums, bass, and then these womps down here. So I mean, I'll go over the drums real quick. There's nothing too crazy, just kick, snare, hi-hats, and there are some open hi-hats down here that get used more as the verse progresses. But for the most part, it's just kick, snare, and a regular hi-hat. So the kick is this. I have 3 snares. I prefer to stack my snares, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Just whatever sounds good. And then some hi-hats over here, and they're just doing like an alternating eighth note sort of deal, tut 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 tut, and muted to create pockets of space for the track. As it progresses, though, I mean the melody up here, this kind of key melody, does change. It becomes more spacious in this section of the first drop. I kind of remove even more notes and create more pocket for things like these bass fills that come in down here, and a little later in these tracks right here, but I'll get to that. So, and then I'll go through this a little bit. So that this bell, it is just a sine and a triangle wave, +1, +2 respectively, and really the sound of it comes from the downsample distortion, creating like that bell, that sparkly sound. My kick, it just has an EQ and a clipper. With kick drums, you may find benefit in doing like an 80 to 150 so hertz dip. You may get like, it just depends. Like kicks have a lot of different power bands and like characteristics and tails that can make this area be really make the difference. And to me, 80 hertz dip right there felt best. There's a clipper after that EQ, and it's through K-Clip 3. So most of my tracks will have K-Clip 3 on them. The tracks, the groups, the stereo bus. I use K-Clip 3 often. It's got some boosting of the lows, cutting of the low mids, boosting sort of with the in, a little bit of cut on the out for the mids, and then a high-end attack. Little bit of side information being added there. The snare, same thing. EQ, really boosting the EQ, and on these two sections, just really to define the body of the snare while removing some harshness, removing all the sub. It doesn't need it. Going through K-Clip. So K-Clip, again, kind of tone shaping the lower mids, the upper mids, giving it some highs. And really, though, the in and out gains are boosted hard. You can clip snares pretty heavy before ruining them, especially in something like dubstep. And then this is turned to the mid. This knob down here on K-Clip is really powerful for getting width or focusing an image, a stereo image, your element that's there. It's something that I almost never mess with wideners anymore because they're just doing phase trickery. And this, I don't know what it's doing, but I haven't had to use a width plugin in I don't even know how long. And yeah, the same with the hi-hats. There's just a little bit of a bump you can see right there on the EQ, K-Clip. And these drum tracks, so my drum processing is pretty consistent across my sessions. Basically, there is, the kick and the snare specifically gets sent to bus 64, which doesn't go anywhere, but I use that bus to input compressors on other tracks for a side chain. And then all the drums here are going to bus 1. There is bus 3 being sent, and I usually use that for like reverb on the cymbals, but I didn't actually end up doing anything this time, so I'll turn that off. But bus 1, which is over here, and it's just got a true iron on it, which is like an analog transformer emulator. It just really gives like depth and weight and body to whatever you put it on. Just subtle, but it helps. There is a Shadow Hills compressor, trusty Shadow Hills bus compressor, which is just doing about 1 dB of gain reduction for like the heavy transients. Really not much. And then there's, of course, K-Clip again. Just doing tone shaping across the spectrum to what I thought sounded good. A little bit of in gain as well. And then there is a send off of the bus or the drum bus to group to another bus. And this is all, again, true iron EQ black box. So this is all saturation and compression. Just extra juice really with the drums. You know, I usually push that up anywhere from like, I don't know, 12 to 9, -12 to -9 dB. And it just kind of, helps with the fatness and the drums cutting through the mix. But that's really it for drums, and everything else is pretty straightforward. And then, yeah, there is the bass patch. So the bass pattern is really what had this song take off. Well, the kick and the bass together with the melody, I thought that the track had some momentum, and so I got kind of excited about it, and thankfully it turned out okay. So the bass patch here is coming from... And it's just a sine wave with a wavetable, single unison, no real changes, a little bit of filtering on A. And I made this 2-bar shape, which is 2 bars is pretty long for a patch, but generally for a bass, but I actually ended up shortening the MIDI notes here, and this ended up not really needing to be used. Just I really only ended up using the beginning rise kind of shape with the length of these notes. There is an EQ on it, really just doing a little bit of low end boost and high end shaving, just like a 0.3, like it's nearly nothing. LFO tool is giving it a quarter note pump. Just to create, again, a pocket. 2 compressors are on this track. One of them is for drums. So I use a FET compressor for drum side chaining on basses because FETs, modeled after like 1176s, black faces, blue faces, they're very fast in their attack time. And so they're really good for a side chain with a transient. So the attack is at 0. The release is pretty fast at 45 milliseconds. There's no makeup gain because I usually won't do it. Maybe like a dB if needed, but no. The ratio is really low, 1.4, and then we have the threshold. So all together, I think it's doing like 6 or 7 dB at a time. There's 2 compressors. So there's one compressor for the drum bus. There's another compressor for the womps. These green regions right here. They have a send on them going to bus 32. So that feeds the compressor on the bass. So this getting squished by the drums and the womps a little less. Black box. So this is a great saturator. It's like my favorite saturator. Usually I'm saturating and clipping quite a lot when it comes to making bass tracks or dubstep in general. A lot of that for like the clip to zero method emphasizes that quite a bit. And then Q4, just a high end sort of reduction to get rid of some of the harshness on that like crunchy timbre that the patch has. And then again, of course, K-clip, doing different shaping in the mids and boosting some highs and going to the side a little. Just again to catch clips and make it louder without ruining it. And then the womps. So the womps became the defining factor in the track, and mainly because the patch I found, I'll go through that, but the patch has some FM distortion, and changing the FM amount halfway through the loop right here, it gave a good call and response sort of thing, which helped the track have, you know, some life in it beyond just the same thing over and over. So it sounds like this. All right, and then the patch itself is something I've had for a while. I actually have a few variations of it, but I got it from using the hybridize function in Serum. And I don't know if it's in Serum 2. I haven't been able to find it, but if you go to your menu and you have a list of presets, you can go here and hit hybridize, and it'll take whatever's in this list and it'll combine things seemingly at random to create new presets. And you get a lot of crap, or silence, but you'll also get some stuff that's pretty cool that you can like save, change, tinker, you know, what have you. If you're feeling lazy and just want to see what you get, it's sometimes just easier that way. But the key to this is that there's FM from the sub and there's FM on B from A. So there is this kind of wave shape at a quarter note here, and so I like the sound of FMing from a square wave. So usually my sub oscillator may have a square on it that's not used with level, but it is used as a distortion source. You can sometimes have to kind of find the sweet spot, but there's some cool tones you can get out of FMing. So I kind of live off of that. There is a fig filter on A and B, so it creates this like comb kind of shape right here. And outside of that, I mean, there's another filter, some 2 multiband dimension, and a little bit of delay. But on it, there's an EQ with like a mid dip and a boost overall. LFO tool is the reason that it is a womp. Again, they're kind of cutting all the volume for everything except this moment. later, there is a supporting womp that comes in. It's purely just filler, just to give more weight to that sort of that groove. Yeah, and this is just, I mean, there's some EQ on there, just, removing some of the lows because we have a bass, moving some of the low mids to remove boominess, boxiness, muddiness, some high range kind of presence and, in your faceness, not too harsh, and then some clarity and air. It's kind of how I look at it. But it's all just ear, it's all just taste, and just do what you like. I think that's most important. And so as far as arrangement and progression, I mean, like I said, it starts out pretty bare bones. You bring in a hi-hat right here to start counting, tut, 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 creating gaps and things. But really the biggest transition, I think, is right here where this goes away, this like atmospheric sort of melody deal. And you don't even like notice that it's there half the time, but when it goes away, you definitely notice like what just happened. Like there's a space that opens up, and that's really where the fills begin. So this project is like really sample heavy, especially back here. But there's also serum fills as well, and that's really what's in the first half, or just these different serum fills. I can kind of walk you through some of those. So there's this one right here. It's kind of like a preload sort of thing, so it helps at like the end of a loop, before a kick, before something like that. Yeah, so like basically drop the hats for a second and let the song breathe for that small little bit, and then remove that atmosphere, change the lead to have more gaps in it, more spaces, and then create more space for fills was my goal, as well as adding the womps. So kind of like a progression change, because this was getting to be a little long, but I wasn't quite sure how to get out of it, and I just kind of ran with it. So so this one is again just a sine wave, a wavetable from EDM templates, and good wavetables will take you far. Dimension and hyper, got multi-band compression and some asymmetric distortion. And that's it, just straight across on one MIDI note. This one I end up using, it's like the same as that one up here. Oh, it's very identical. I think it might even be the same patch with a different part of the wavetable being used. It's like almost the same. And I just use it as, again, just kind of right before a downbeat or something to emphasize and be a cool texture in the whole deal. But this last loop, before we get out and move on, is where other bass fills come in. And these are being triggered by XO, which is what I use for drums. And so if you don't know, XO is like, it's made by XLN Audio, and it's basically an alternative way to get, like, pick your samples really, without having to go down a list and like preview each thing. It like kind of categorizes or sorts all your samples. So and so it's helpful. And for this track, I was like, well, why don't I just use it to trigger bass samples? And I did, and it was time consuming and tedious, like trying to find the right samples for the right moments and edit them if needed. But basically, that's all it is. It's just triggering these things at the right times. So like this one. And that one kind of comes with a grain of salt, because there is on these fill tracks, there's not really much for plugins. They're going to a bus with Q4 something called bass focus and newfangled and K-clip. I'll cover those, but there's LFO tool on it doing a 16th note at this shape, and where it's only used is briefly right here. So on LFO tool, you can turn the volume parameter up to 100, and it kind of serves as like almost like a wet dry knob. You know, if it's at 100, it's working. If it's at 0, nothing's happening. So it's only used for that one moment. It stays off or dry the rest of the time. But any kind of shaper will give you that ability. You just pick your interval, make a shape, and let it ride. Automation is your friend, obviously, if you're making this kind of music, so don't shy away from it. And then basically, yeah, we're just getting out of this because I knew it was time to move on from this section. So I just rose out of it with just some uplifters here, some white noise uplifters. I usually will also automate other things like maybe the drum low end or the snare low end or high end. You kind of filter them down. Here on the bass, something I'll usually do is cut the lows. So the low on the EQ is cutting everything below 68 hertz up from 20 off basically. And then the high gain, the high shelf on the EQ for the bass is also going down at this point. It's going down 9 dB. With the white noise risers here, they do go to a bus over here, bus 4, and they're just, removing the lows, cutting the high mids. I thought this area was a little harsh, and so I cut that slightly and boosted the highs. Serum effects is my go-to for most things. Chorus, delay, reverb, tried and true. Again, black box for saturation. And with saturation, it's important to remember that as you start stacking saturators, you'll have buildup of high end. And if you're making real bass tracks that are loud, you can't always listen loud. And it's important to check your volume, because you get high end buildup real quick that you're not aware of. Or if you mix low, you'll overcompensate for the high end, and you'll blast yourself when you turn it up, which happens to me often. So no worries, but just be aware of it. And then there is compressor for the drums. Again, sidechain compression on the uplifters so that these drums up here come through still while these are playing. Q4, probably for some high-end high-end boost and mids cutting, just to remove some, how in your face it is. And then K-clip, of course. Again, just K-clip to finish everything off. And that leads us to this fill. So I'll just let this play real quick. I guess after, sorry. So I basically, for this breakdown, I knew I wanted the clap in there just as a change of pace and to keep the tempo and the I don't know, the song rolling. So I did have I liked the kick kind of being an anchor every so often, and I liked the bass patch kind of crunchiness, and so I took a very short blip of the bass up with the kick, and there is some automation on the low cut. It's at 112, so there's not really any sub frequency coming through the bass patch. It's just crunch, timbre, texture. And there is some reverse cymbals here, again, going to their own bus with serum effects for, space and lushness. Again, saturation, some EQ, just really slight, and K-clip. You'll hear me say that 50 times today. And really, this was an interesting one. So this was an EXO track, but I had to render the sample and kind of work with it a little bit. But I kept going through EXO in the space, and I kept hearing all these neuro reeses, and I was like, those are crazy. And I figured if I don't know how to get out of this and I can't write anything directly, why don't we just, use one of those? And so I threw a kick down and put that thing in there and tried to edit it a little bit. And it's got this tape stop effect. Logic can do that. Instead of a fade out, you can do a slowdown. So I thought that was fitting for the spot it was at. And then there's this fill here that's played twice, this long one again, and so it's the same 3 fills as before. That's exactly the same. And these right here have a nice reverb tail on them. It just kind of goes. And yeah, so we're off to the riser basically, or the breakdown section. And this is just a clap on quarter notes, 3 claps, 1. That just, does its job. There is a bass pad, or like a Reese pad, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And it's just, I mean, I really like pads like that. They're very, they're very ominous. They're very powerful. They're not too loud and in your face. They really carry like a weight that I enjoy, and they have like a vibe about them. You can throw some reverb on them too, maybe a little resonance filter, get some cool tone out of it. And so that does have quite a bit of automation, this Reese pad. Specifically like lows and highs on the Serum EQ in the rack, as well as the EQ in Logic, but it looks like that is actually deactivated, so it's not being used. But yeah, so the lows, they're open completely. They get filtered a little in the next section. The highs are up and they go down over here, and then they go back up for this riser. This is the actual riser moment. There is a couple macros, a macro for a low pass filter that opens, so more high end comes through as you go, and a final macro for pitch bending. So if you have a patch like this one, you can macro a knob through the matrix to master tuning, and then you can automate the macro. So that will give you like a pitch effect. And so that's sometimes what I'll do for my risers. So in here, I wasn't quite sure how to move forward, with it, minus the bass pad, the clap, and I did bring back that sound, this thing, just to again have that delay, echo, ambient space, creating a new space in the song. And then really the two like kind of defining factors are going to be this womps here and this sample. So the womps are the same as they are over here, but they have a send on them. They have an auxiliary send to bus 32, which is an effects bus. So down here on womp effects, you can see that the volume is up at 0 only for this section and the breakdown. And what it is just Serum effects and K-clip. So Serum effects is running hyper, delay, distortion, reverb, and it's that's it. I mean, it's just a delay sort of texture. So and then these are here because if you have buses like this in the arrange window and you move your regions up here to different areas, your bus automation won't move. So you have to create regions where the automation sits, and you can move it all together like that. So there's nothing in there but automation. And then finally, there is this right here. So there's this tonal effect sample, like it might be like a Symatix sample. And it's got Symatix, the company. It's got, like if I turn all these plugins off on it, it sounds completely different from what, or mostly different from what it sounds like in the song. That's it. So with a convolution and then a pitch shifter, because it goes down 3 semitones, but the mix is not full. So it's like got some, multi-notedness in there. I did add Morph to it by Melda, which if you don't know, Melda and Morph, or Morph is a great plugin, Melda is a great company. They have a great free suite. But Morph allows you to kind of have a sound and like kind of mush tones between it, and you can blend like 2 primary tones together. It's pretty cool. I like how it sounds on some things, and so I put it on there. Serum effects, again, just probably for the same old, chorus, delay, chorus, reverb. I think there's like a quarter notes. And then this filter, I do like trying to, you know, get that tucked into where the song best benefits. Chorus as well. Chorus shouldn't just be thrown on there. I usually try to kind of dial that in, best fitting with the track. Some EQ, just for some shaping, removing what doesn't work, emphasizing what does. And then finally K-clip. And so the end result. Oh, good. And that's it. I mean, that carries us to the riser itself. So. And then there's a set of reverse cymbals here in XO, 3 of them, and they actually sound like one. It's pretty just well placed. Long reverb tail. Again, that same fill down here. And then here is where I brought back the lead from the beginning. These notes right here. The clap goes away. It's gone. And we go back to kick and snare. And this was just a pattern that I had like in my head before to do that playfully with these notes, just to build tension and suspense rather than just going straight to a do type of deal. But yeah, it just kind of kicks up the tempo without going full force. And then there is this extra saw right here that you can barely hear. It's like insanely quiet. I just wanted some noise to fill the space. There's some fills down here. I guess just 2. This is an XO fill. Just again, kind of placed in the right spot, the right pitch. Again, with another one of these. And then a saw riser is used here. That same saw from right here is brought over. The Reese pad is again automated to get thinner, have more high end, pitch bend upward. And this sample that I processed, I ended up like recopying in time with the riser and pitching upwards to kind of make everything go up at the same time. The drums, the kick and snare obviously are doing just, you know, the typical riser pattern. We're going twice as fast every so often and going up and up and up and up and up. And there is a small gap in right here. There's this volume dip on every track and the buses too. Actually, maybe not. Guess not. But that's just to allow for something I wanted to hear. I was making the riser and I was like, okay, there needs to be like this little gap in it. And that's what this is down here. Again, from XO. Just 2 samples right next to each other. Whoops. There we go. And because that one's so long, that's why I did the volume automation. And yeah, so that leads us to the actual, there's another reverse cymbal again from the same track earlier. Couple reverse cymbals right here as well, just in that other gap. Sorry, I'm trying to not miss anything. But yeah, so with the drop, this whole thing right here, I had like an idea that me and my friend had tossed around for a while and just decided to use that since I didn't have any better ideas. And originally it said Bluetooth connected, but I kind of didn't love it. It was more comical than like serious to what I wanted to keep. But then I thought, you know, why not just put my name in there? It's like way cooler. So, and the JBL sound is the reason it's not on streaming platforms right now. I don't know if I should do that or not. I can always change it, but currently I just have the JBL sound in there. I thought it was funny and that people would recognize it. So now the real key to me with this riser or this like drop moment is these bass fills here. They have like a descending quality, like a do 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 do. So there's this one and this one and this one. just again well placed and timed to fit what the track needed. There is this little shadow sample of a riser that I used as well, and that saw riser again with some automation on the volume. So all that together creates the drop moment and leads us into the cool part. But there is this snare right here, and that was really because I was having trouble bringing in the drop without it seeming out of left field, sort of. And I couldn't find a way to extend that to be any longer. That like that pink area here was just every time I moved it longer, it just started to stall. So, and then over here, all I had written to bring that in was like these. And when you miss the first kick, you have to have a setup for that. And I didn't have, I wanted a downbeat, as you see right here. And every time I kept running through this, I was like, it needs a downbeat. And so the snare just kind of anchors everyone and catches their attention and lets them know, like, we're about to jump back in, basically. So it's just there to center. And it kind of mutes everything else. When the snare hits, everything stops, I think.
Let's go.
Just kidding. One beat later. But yeah, it just helps kind of get everyone focused, like we're about to run again. So because I had like this written first without these kicks right here for these fills that fit right there, I had to make a new pattern, sort of. And in order to really bridge the transition, I brought the metal womps from the first drop. So they just kind of processed a little bit differently, and I don't think they have they don't have the warp on B. Yeah, there's no warp on B. It's just continuous throughout the whole thing, like not like before. And yeah, I had to change the length of the bass MIDI. Like you can see here, it's much more spacious, but here it's pretty consistent as far as like, you know, the length of the notes and how close together they are. And then these womps down here, there's 2 tracks of extra womps that kind of support and give more, you know, beef and bite. They couldn't just come in. I didn't like how it sounded because it was just like this, like they were just full through with the lengths of their notes with the metal womps. Just didn't work. It was too much. So I had to like tease them back in. But the drums are the same, you know, as before. I'm pretty sure they haven't changed. Same 3 snares. Hats. The bass patch is different. I mean, it sounds gritty and chunky as before, but it's still EDM templates with a wavetable and a sine wave, still a filter, and just a brick of a sustain, just an up and then envelope at the end. So it just keeps running. You know, hyper, multiband, diode, and a little bit of reverb just for that high end. EQ is doing a big cut around here just to avoid that boxy muddiness and let the kick breathe, let everything else have its place. 2 compressors, again, one for drums. With the this is actually coming from the drum bus, not the kick and snare bus. So depending on where you choose to send, or if what you're choosing to send from in your signal path, will determine behavior, will determine sound that you get. So everything is nuance, but a lot of nuance and small decisions over time build up to make what a mix becomes. So you do have, again, another blackface. This one is taking the Womp bus 63, or like a Womp send, I think is what it is. Yeah, they're sending over here bus 63. So they just squish the bass a little. There is more saturation, a little bit of pushing on the diode or pentode triode. Density is, this is a powerful knob on here. Not powerful, but like you can get different shades of distortion and saturation with that density knob. Pro Q4, which is doing some stuff I thought that it needed. You know, there's a 70 hertz kind of dynamic band cut. There is a low-end dynamic band. There's a mid-range dynamic band, or low mids, 219. A boost, sorry, there's a cut at 1000, but that's just a cut. And there's a side channel cut with a dynamic boost. There is a stereo dynamic boost to give it like that screechy, screamy texture tone, and then little high-end shelf. And then K-clip. clay clip is doing just tone shaping kind of in the low mids and high end and mid side placement. And yeah, the metal womps here. Okay, the popping's killing me. Hang on. I use LFO tool to make the womps happen, but sometimes if you're not just right with these, it gets angry at you. Sorry. Anyways, so yeah, that's what LFO tool is doing. It's just cycling between those eighth and quarters to give you that womp, 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 bump, 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 bump. But yeah, I'll just go ahead and let it run, I guess, and we can go through the fills and everything and check out the arrangement changes up here and finish it off.
Symatix connected.
Let's go.
So that's just a couple of fills. We got XO down here running this. Oops, volume. Just like a descend of sorts. And then this is a render. The render was done because originally it was a patch in Serum, and I used like the beginning of the patch, but I heard on accident like the back half of it. And I was like, well, that's way cooler. So I rendered the whole thing, cut the back half, and then put it here for that. And so, yeah, this is kind of where you have that delayed downbeat, which sometimes is unexpected and exciting. Anytime you can surprise your listener tastefully, I think that's the goal. So yeah, just now we're back to what the pattern should have been in the beginning, but I just couldn't do it. It wasn't time. But it comes in with just so much oomph. Like it's just like, oh yeah, that's what we wanted to hear. And I think that's also something, is giving people what they want while surprising them too. There's a bunch of samples that play back to back that just kind of feed into each other here. So again, it just took a long time to really zone in on what was needed. Nothing? Oh, volume. Just a real quick, 1, 2, 3, but stacking stuff together like that is, you can get pretty cool results. So this, I think we might have already heard this one. No, we haven't. So this one has some pretty drastic kind of scooped EQing, boosted end, boosted low, boosted high, cuts in the mids. So that's scooped sound. This is actually just basic shapes. I think it's an XLNT preset. Pretty cool. There's quite a few effects, but EQ, LFO tool just to get the boom, Yeah, it's got like a half note. So these are basically a quarter note and a quarter note, but with some beginning and end silent like silence that helps create more groove than just off or like on and off. Square transitions instead of rounded. It's like almost like a crossfade if you're doing audio, kind of bringing it down instead of just stopping it. There's that, and then these right here. So this one, same thing, but this is different. Kind of like a laser gun sort of deal. And most of the fills, they don't have much inserted, maybe some saturation, maybe a little EQ, but K-clip and usually it. This is an Avant preset. This was second one I drew because you can double speed the LFO, but it just didn't sound as good. I wanted to write in a second one and kind of control this little doohickey here. More control, more sound, more tone, bro. And then, yeah, just moving on from there. So a lot of fills, obviously. This one was kind of a pain in the ass because it's so long and it really has some odd movement in it. What I had to do was, I found out that in XO, because you can pitch the samples in XO, you can change their higher or lower. And when you do that, it changes how fast the sample plays back. So I sat there tediously trying to adjust the semitones to make it play more in sync with the beat and tempo and syncopations. It did pretty good. It's not like perfect, but it's close enough for me. But I almost didn't use it, but I liked it. And then there's just these over here, just different fills and things. This one, those two there's just luck. Like I just happened to pick some things that those two just kind of like bleed right into each other. Coincidentally, it was just again kind of a lucky find. And that doot is again LFO tool with the volume automation right here up. So like that. Just all those are running through. The patterns above are not changing really. They're just the same thing over and over again, letting the sounds be the star. And then now we have the last run around here. So yeah, this one just, that long one again. And then this one right here. So this was like a last minute decision. I just decided that I wanted to like have something that related to the first part of the track, sound, from there. And I like those little eighth note blips from the first verse and the metal womp sound. So I just duplicated the track, brought it down here, and stuck it right in this gap. There was a different sample there that sounded very similar to this, like this one, and it was too similar to, I was like, it could be better, it could be different. So you can't let go of that thought once you have it. And that's it. Just three, it's an eighth pump. So like there's 1, 2, and 3 of them in there. And the third one is kind of quieter. I brought the volume of it down a little bit, but just something to kind of, again, bring continuity and fun to the track. It does end with this sort of sound and then an impact. And the impact got buried a little bit with all these uplifters, the saw riser, and like these downlifters that come in. It was just a lot, and like the impact transient was getting buried, so I had to kind of remove some volume like at that moment right here. This is the bus for these for the uplifters, and the downlifter bus I didn't change, but there is just some making room for that to be there. The bass pattern does have a low shelf automation at the end of the drop section to remove the low end and let people know like it's over and we're moving on. Just transferring the energy appropriately. The out gain of the first baseband in K clip, so the baseband output is going down 4 dB, and the high end band output is going down from 1.3 to 11.3. So volume and kind of tone adjustments as we leave. And then, yeah, so I have these downlifters here, 4 of them. They're going to a bus 7. It's coming here with saturation, serum effects with, I'm guessing, yeah, chorus and reverb. EQ, just so you can get rid of the mids. Highs are fine. Remove the lows. And then Q4, just for some mid-range dynamic push, so it's not too harsh and in your face. And really from here, I just have the elements from the breakdown. So there's that melody with like that delayed and grainy kind of atmosphere. The womps with their delay effects down here on the bus. There's that sample again, that purple sample that I did some pretty decent processing to, and then that pad. The pad does have automation in it in this section to just thin out and get quieter. Everything's all about kind of just closing the song out. So usually you'll automate EQs, automate volume, maybe automate reverb, whatever you're looking for vibe and tone. Now, the one thing I didn't really cover is these womps in the drop that just occurred to me. So these are pretty beefy, and they go to a bus together. So they're both going to bus 5. So there's this one. It's really wild. You can hear the phaser in it and everything. Monster, and so those are actually stock wavetables in Serum. Comb filter movement to create like that metallic-y sound. Some EQ just to kind of fit it in with the other womps and the mix, and then saturation clipping, and it's going to bus 63 for a side chain on the bass. It is going to bus 5, so bus 5 has, again, a lot of dynamic bands. Side high end was removed and only boosted for the womps. So with womps, dynamic bands work great because they're not a transient, but they are a momentary happening, and you can instead of boosting signal constantly and adding level to the path or constantly removing harmonic content, you can have dynamic bands, which really emphasize or remove what you do or don't want only at the moment that you need to via the dynamic band's threshold and attack and release if you have Q4. So it allows you to like control without permanently changing, which way better. Then this one. Whoever put that square and used it to be, that was just really clever. And yeah, so again, bus 5, and then those go to K clip. There's nothing going on in K clip. I am doing the mids a little bit, just kind of tilting towards the mids over the sides, and that's it. I mean, that's basically the entire track. Sorry, guys. And as far as the mix window, there's not really anything in here that I could show you that I haven't already gone over. Drums are really the only thing that gets like their own treatment. Everything else is kind of fly by wire, depending on what how the mix is treating me and what I need to do. But on the master bus, this might piss some people off, but like there's not much there. There's Q4 with some pretty hefty different cuts and boosts for low end, mid boost, side cut, side boost. high mid dynamic boost with a cut, mid boost on the high end, and then a stereo dynamic huge cut on the low end or the high end to just tame any harshness. K-Clip is also doing that. It's taming the high end and then kind of tone shaping the mix, giving some mid focus. And I did turn the out down just for this video because I tried to do it with it up and it was horrible. You would have hated it. So I just turned that down, but that I think is at like I think 0.4 up. So, and then after, normally I wouldn't do this, but I liked how it sounded. Was Saturate, Newfangled Saturate. So this is a fantastic clipper. It's kind of a clipper and saturator in one, but it's really cool. It's got a good tone that is kind of unique to it, I think, and it just helped. There's a little bit of drive, a half dB, but really soft shape and everything. So, and that is really it, guys. I mean, that's the whole track front to back. Again, my song Connected. Check it out again on SoundCloud, Bandcamp, YouTube. Repost if you like it. I do appreciate you watching. I hope you learned something and enjoyed it. So that's all for now. And be good to each other. Love yourself. And hit me up on DM if you need. Leave a comment. I do appreciate you guys. You take care.